but apparently not low for Hugh Freeze. Here's what he said when he's visiting with the guys from the Next Round Live on Friday.
Going into this season, does it feel a little bit different? Do you feel like, hey, I've got to win X amount of games?
I'm not a fool. I think we've got to go to a bowl game, and I think our administration understands. Look, I inherited a program that didn't have a top 25 recruiting class for 4 years. You're not going to win in this league. We've had now 2 full recruiting classes, both top 10. I think one more than your roster looks complete, but I'm still not naive. And we should have won some games last year that we could have won some games. I shouldn't say we should. We could have won some games last year. And we've got to find a way to make sure we're excellent in those areas that cost us those, that put us in a position to be at least bowl eligible, if not more. And I see no reason why we shouldn't do that. And I think that's an expectation that our people should expect. And I don't sit around feeling like that puts a lot of pressure on me. Look, I'm blessed. And I'm blessed to be at one of the greatest universities, to live in one of the greatest towns, to work for some of the greatest people, and our administration's awesome. My family, I have all 3 daughters there and grandkids. So, whatever the outcome of all of that is, that will be okay. Obviously, I'm a competitor, and I want to deliver to the Auburn people, and it's time for us to start doing that.
Bowl eligible at least is not what the Auburn people want, Hugh Freeze. They want a little more than that.
Yeah. I was on board with everything he said, and then when he said bowl eligible, it was like the like in those old Western movies when somebody walks into the bar that isn't supposed to be there and the piano stops. That's kind of how that's what went on in my brain when he said that. Yeah, so the thing that is interesting about Auburn, and it's a perfect way to start talking about it, is I actually think that he was right when he was talking about last year. And part of the reason why I believe that Auburn is going to be a pretty good football team this year is that they were pretty non-functional at the quarterback position last year, and they still were in the position to win some games in the SEC that you would have thought they were supposed to win. They almost they were in the game with Arkansas, they were in the game with Oklahoma, they were in the game with Mizzou, and they were in the game with Vanderbilt, and they were in the game to a certain extent with Alabama. Maybe not so much. Maybe not so much on the scores closer maybe than that game was. But when you think about the fact that they also were able to beat A&M, they were able to beat Kentucky. I don't know. I thought that we said last year that they were the best bad team in college football, and it looks like to me that he has done a pretty good job of addressing the issues. I think that they're going to have a pretty explosive offense if their quarterback, whoever they land on, I think it'll be Jackson Arnold, but whoever they land on, has a good year. Now, there's a lot to unpack about the past, because when you do say it out loud, it is pretty crazy to think that Auburn went 4 years without signing a top 25 class, in that conference.
But that's not true. That's the thing. That is not true at all. They actually, the 4 years he's talking about, they had a top 25 class every year.
Did they really?
Yes. That's the part that made people so mad, was that is just not true.
I thought that they went a few years without even recruiting high-end or 5-star players.
Well, no, they had bad classes for the SEC under Harsin, but not a number 19 class means you're number 11 in the SEC.
But he's not wrong. Their talent level was not anywhere near.
It's not, but this is the transfer portal era, and you don't get to whine about that in year 3. If I'm going to clobber
the next point, this brings me to the next point, is that Hugh Freeze made the decision on his own to not overpay a transfer quarterback last year, and quarterback turned out to be the biggest weakness on their roster. So, to a certain extent, yeah, you inherited a team that expects to compete for a national championship and was nowhere near that talent-wise, whether it was however he phrased it. That happens to me all the time. I'll say something and then somebody will go, well, actually, but it's what he's trying to say is true, which is he inherited a team that didn't have any good players on it.
But don't use easily looked up facts if you're going to use them wrong.
Yeah, I think he probably,
because then people think you're just lying.
But here's the thing, Andy. I didn't go back and look it up. You did. And I guess that's what happens if you lie and you don't look it up. But like I thought that sounded reasonable. Like from what I remember when I was like covering Auburn recruiting at The Athletic, like, and I was doing this piece every week called This Week in Recruiting, where I kind of, did every Wednesday a whole like overview of what happened in the previous week in recruiting. Like Auburn for 2 years, like was not even in it. Like they weren't even.
No, because Brian Harsin did not attempt to recruit the way you're supposed to recruit as Auburn's head coach.
So hearing that they even had a top 25 class now sounds bizarre to me because they weren't recruiting at that level. But at the same time, he could have done himself a huge favor by using the portal in his first offseason in a way that he did not do. And he had and there are quotes of him. We wrote about this last year saying, well, I'm not overpaying for a quarterback. It's like, are you sure about that, Hugh? Like, are you sure that's the right? And then it turned out that it was the wrong decision.
Yeah,
so
and it's funny because the overpaying for a quarterback, like the quarterback market went up so much this year because rev shares coming in, the whole pay scale for everybody went up. Like we're talking about not paying $1.5 million for somebody. Like, what would 2 more wins have been worth to Auburn last year? More than $1.5 million, guaranteed. Yeah.
But I also think too that like they're up there at 7.5, which seems like a low number, but I think that's probably a pretty, like, I think if they go 8-4 this year, then that might be in line with how I view them. I know we have them like fringe top 10, but then at the same time too, like, I just feel like it's impossible for everybody to traverse.
Here's the thing. If you're 8-4 with Auburn's schedule and you're close in a couple of your tough games, then you're probably actually fairly close to the playoff. It's a matter of,
I'm going to that Baylor game, the Friday night, August 29th. Like that is a good game.
Oh yeah.
That is a very underrated, interesting, good game. It says it's the 30th on the graphic. It says the 29th online. I don't know.
Yeah, it's on Friday. We got to fix that. It's a Friday night.
I'm going to that because I've never been to a game.
How are you going to get to Columbus at noon the next day?
Is it no?
Flying early?
Oh, it's the 30th. God, no, I don't know.
Yeah, Friday. See. Usually,
I'm getting confused.
Most of the time, Saturday comes right after Friday.
Oh no! But I thought that I thought the Saturday was the 31st for some reason.
Yeah, no. That's
okay.
Yeah.
But so maybe I won't go. But I think we're going to find out a lot about. We'll find out a lot about both of those teams because, like, I think that there's some sneaky Baylor hype before the year too. So if Auburn goes on the road and beats Baylor in week 1, then you might be setting the table for a pretty successful season. Because if you look at their schedule, they have Baylor, Ball State, South Alabama. If they go 3-0 in the non-conference, then I think that they could probably, I don't know. They got a pretty brutal schedule. I don't know how closely you've looked at this one, but at Oklahoma, at Texas A&M, and Georgia to open up the SEC is kind of a tough 3-game stretch.
They got to win the Baylor game. I think to go over, they got to win the Baylor game.
Yeah. Then they got.
But I also think they can beat it. Like they beat A&M last year. They can beat A&M again. The Oklahoma game is a big swing game for both teams.
Yeah, here's the
Georgia and Alabama at home.
Here's the stretch that's going to tell you everything you need to know. Mizzou, Arkansas, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Mercer. I think that it's very, very likely or very possible for them to go 5-0 in that stretch. So if they go 3-0 in the non-conference and 5-0 in that stretch, then that's the Auburn team I'm expecting. I don't know if I'm expecting them to beat A&M on the road, although I think that's possible that they do. We don't know exactly what Oklahoma is going to be, but I'm drinking Oklahoma off-season tea. I think they're going to be much better than people think they're going to, be. But like I do think that they've got a pretty manageable schedule in terms of like that 5-game chunk right in the middle of October into the late November. And then who knows about the Alabama game? That game's weird. So
Civilian Development Group, which may be Hugh Freeze's burner. I don't get the Freeze backlash outside of young, immature, emotional idiots who take sound bites.
Are we young? That's nice.
We're old.
I'm young.
Justin Hokanson from our Auburn Live site at On3, he took quite a bit of offense to this. And it was interesting reading the debate on the message boards at Auburn Live because we need to, like, I don't think it's split 50-50. I think a lot of the fans agreed with Justin on this. Like, you don't need to poor mouth here because you were fairly close in a lot of games last year, and last year's over, and you did a lot of the things that you needed to do to correct that, and you did really the things you need to do to have a competitive roster now, and Hugh Freeze has been doing that since he got there, other than the quarterback decision last offseason. There's no need to pour mouth here. Just say, we expect to compete for championships and leave it at that.
Yeah.
That is the expectation at Auburn.
Well, the thing that I'm afraid of here, Andy, is that he is setting the expectation for us. Like, he is telling us we need to make it to a bowl game because maybe in his own mind, he doesn't think that this is a 10-win team. You know how sometimes coaches will give away little Easter eggs in the offseason to tell you how they're feeling without actually coming out and saying it. And I thought that that might have been a reattempt at redefining what he believes.
Let me throw this out there. He does not need to be managing expectations in this way. And I get that maybe he thinks that they're not that good, and he'd be pleasantly surprised if they were. But Auburn fans are not going to be happy with 6-6. They're probably not going to be happy with 7-5.
Does 6-6 get him fired?
That's what I was about to get to. He's the cheapest SEC coach who isn't like everybody's so happy with him. He's the cheapest one to fire. Like his buyout's 14 something at the end of this year.
Yeah.
Everybody else is more expensive to fire. Because everybody else, Venables,
the conundrum that I have
Napier, all of them, Mark Stoops, way more expensive.
Okay, so this is a podcast. Let's get to the uncomfortable conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
The uncomfortable conversation here is, does Hugh Freeze's history make his leash shorter, or does he have a clean SEC coach slate?
His history makes his leash shorter because they gave him a lower buyout. He doesn't.
No, I know, but you go into that experiment saying we take on the baggage, but we better win, and we're not doing the baggage thing if we're not winning. Like
he didn't get a giant buyout because of his history. Therefore,
no, I understand that, but what I'm saying is does Auburn pull the cord faster because they don't have a? Obviously, the financial thing is the financial thing. Everybody wishes they could get out easier financially, but I'm saying, do you think they're more likely to fire him sooner as a result of his history?
I think they're more likely to fire him sooner because it's cheaper.
Because here's the conundrum that I have.
And they made it cheaper because of his history.
Yeah, I guess it's semantics here. I'm trying to say, does he come into his Auburn tenure with a shorter on-ramp to success than he otherwise would have? Is it only just the financial thing?
I don't think so. I think you take a job like Auburn, and it is a tough job, and the demands are high, and you have to satisfy those demands, or they will fire you, regardless of your history. The fact of the matter is they've made it easier to fire him because of his history, because he didn't have a huge buyout, because he didn't have as much leverage going in. So it's all interrelated. But
here's the conundrum, Andy. I've been trying to get this out. I need to say it. He seems to be doing everything right off the field to get them where they need to be. So like you and I have always had this debate in this new era of transfer portal of how long do you get? But I feel like if you're an Auburn fan and you lived through the Harsin years and then you see the way that he's accumulated talent, which has been quite well, if he affords himself another year after this, even if it doesn't go that well, because that will give him a chance to stack 3 consecutive recruiting classes in the top 10, that also, coincides with a pretty good.
Well, that's what he's trying to say. So did you write his talking points for him?
No, but this is how I feel. I have a hard time because I think he has a bad history, and I think they've lost a lot of games that they wouldn't have lost if it wasn't for his decision making. Like, so I think that there's a negative aspect.
Well, that's
on
the
the other side. You have a lot of things that are like, we're headed in the right direction. It's like if you're on a road trip and you're kind of lost, but you're headed in the right direction, do you just turn around? Like, because turning around messes it all up.
If you're 7-5, but competitive in the losses, then I don't think he's getting fired over that.
I believe that
6-6 might not be good enough, though. Like, just going to bowl game might not be good enough.
I truly believe that Auburn, if they stick with him, will have a good year in the next 3 years. Like, I think they're going
to have a good year this year.
I do too. Because, like, here's the thing. A lot of times, people's reputations also distract you from the fact that he's a very good football coach, right? Like, can we agree on that? Like, do you think that he's a really good coach? I think he knows how to draw
he put together good teams at Ole Miss, good teams at Liberty. Yes. So the guy knows what he's doing.
Maybe that's why you and I are drinking the tea a little bit this offseason. I actually think that 9 wins is on the table here. But I think
more than 9 wins is on the table. This is an odd year which means they get Alabama and Georgia at home. Like they can be a very competitive team at the top of the sport. This is not a charity case here. Like Auburn can be really good.
Their schedule sets up. It's not brutal, but it's difficult. So, yeah, I'm like this is the thing this is the emotion that Hugh Freeze draws out of me. I get very conflicted because I think that he says things that he shouldn't say, and I think that he acts in a way that he shouldn't act at times. Like last year, I thought that his repeated decisions to throw the quarterback under the bus when he was the one who trotted them out there and knew what he was doing, I thought was absolutely asinine. I also don't love what he just said with the clip that we just played, but at the same time, too, I like the ingredients of what he's putting together there. And I really don't know how to feel about the guy.
Yeah. I don't either. He's been like this since Ole Miss. Like he says stuff that he probably shouldn't say. But the fact of the matter is, he has done what he needs to do to build this roster to a point where it's competitive. And I got all over Lincoln Riley last year. I got all over Billy Napier last year because you don't get to make excuses in year 3 in the transfer portal era about your roster. You don't get to say the guy before me sucked and this roster's no good. Because that's what they were doing before they went 7-5 in year 3.
And the other interesting thing that he said here,
excuse now,
Andy, is that he said that another top 10 class, which would be 3 in a row, would make his roster look more complete, which in 2017 was exactly true. But I don't know if that's true now. Like, how many recruiting classes of your own do you need for your roster to look complete in 2025? Like, I think that the distance to that is shorter than 3 years.